One of the main themes we've been following on this channel is the lack of retrospection of the Democrats to really figure out why the American people have turned against them, why they're at the all-time lows in terms of registration, and why, of course, they're losing elections. Now, I hope personally they never figure any of this out, but that's something we're going to be seeing. Some Democrats actually are trying to do this, while others are completely ignoring it. So before we get to these clips, don't forget to like and comment on this video so we can break through the algorithms. Here we go.
How concerned are you by the Democrats' reaction on Capitol Hill? We saw the protest. We saw people being a bit vociferous, to say the least, and saying some things that I didn't think was the most advisable thing to say. I think they came across as people that were still campaigning, as opposed to recognizing this is the new power in office. Y'all lost. There's a different mandate, and you got to accept that, and might be inclined to act a little bit differently. But that's not what transpired. How do you feel about what you've seen from the Schumers of the world and others on Capitol Hill?
I can't put it any better than that. They're still in campaign mode. Sounds right. It seems like anything that Trump or Musk does, they have to condemn, and they have to condemn it on the basis of the people personally. Trump is a Nazi. Musk has apartheid roots. And to me, it just proves they haven't learned their lesson yet, that they should be in the better idea business. And they do seem like they're defending the status quo. They're just defending the establishment. And I don't think that's where you want to be right now. You want to be in the business of better. And they seem like they're still in the business of painting the other side as worse. And a little bit of that sounds like semantics or a rhetorical device, but I don't think it is. I think it reads to people as, listen, I don't like the guy either, or maybe I do, but either way, it doesn't matter. I just want stuff to get better for me and my family. Are you about that, or are you just about comparative advantage over the other side? And they have to find a better answer to that question. And, you know, there's a lot of this going on over there. There's a lot of hand wringing going on the left. And to me, that's almost like masturbatory. You know, it's not really about getting them to a better place. When they are at their best, Democrats, they are speaking to the masses with dynamic messengers who are taking on the hard work of showing that things can be more light than dark. The Republicans, starting with the, you know, in our lifetime, the contract with America, 1993 for Newt Gingrich, him saying that Republicans need to learn how to get mean. And they took toughness as an advantage, and it has worked well for them. The Democrats are not going to win a bully contest.
So Chris Cuomo and Stephen A. Smith, both of which are big-time Democrats, are coming out and saying, yeah, we have to find a new way forward, right? The old messaging, it didn't work. There's a new mandate in place, and all these Democrats out there protesting, lawmakers, by the way, protesting against DOGE, protesting against eliminating government waste, they're really out of touch with Americans. And of course, that is why they've lost, right? Go back to Newt Gingrich, and yes, the problem with America, Republicans win when we're tough, when we're honest, when we say exactly what we're going to do, like Donald Trump did, right? He had specific ideas of everything he wanted to implement. Compare that, of course, to Kamala Harris, who talked in circles and had broad generalizations and nothing, of course, concrete. And that, of course, is why she lost. The American people turned against the Democrat message. And I'm not sure if Chris Cuomo meant it this way, but yeah, the Democrats are not going to win in a tough guy contest, right? They are milquetoast. They are weak. All their positions are about acquiescence and getting along, not about American dominance, not about making America great again, as it were, okay? But the American people have finally clued in and learned their lesson. But don't, of course, tell that to The View.
Trump continues to pull initiatives that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, everybody knows it as that. Former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg weighed in with a take that surprised some people. Watch.
What do we mean when we talk about diversity? Is it caring for people's different experiences and making sure no one's mistreated because of them, which I will always fight for? Or is it making people sit through a training that looks like something out of Portlandia, which I have also experienced, and it is how Trump Republicans are made. If that comes to your workplace with the best of intentions, but doesn't actually get at what actually matters here, what's actually at stake.
So do you agree with him that DEI initiatives drove voters to Trump? And what else can be done to make sure everyone is represented on an even playing field?
You know what I think, and
what do you think?
I like Pete, of course, but I think he got that so wrong, and I think it was so tone deaf, considering what's going on. All of it. I thought all of it was tone deaf, because what happens is when from 1776 to 1965, you have basically white men in charge of everything, right? Women, people of color, we're left out of just equality of opportunity,
Yes,
that sort of
right.
thing. And I think when that equality starts popping up in terms of diversity program, equality now feels like oppression to those people who were at the top of the ladder, not necessarily because of their merit, but because of their identity, right? And so in my view, when you look at the stats, it is really clear from McKinsey, actually, a consulting firm that Pete used to work for, that firm found that companies with more diversity financially and socially outperform those that are less diverse. So the business case for diversity, equity, and inclusion, it makes sense. And I think we can all agree that we want our workforce to reflect what our world looks like.
I think he does too, though, don't you?
No, I think he does. But my question, really, I think we need to reframe the discussion. If the problem is these programs, what is the solution? Should we just then depend on the benevolence of Elon Musk and white billionaires to hire women and people of color?
No.
Should we just depend on corporations to, on their own, make the workforce more diverse? They didn't do it from 1776 to 1965.
Right.
Why do we think it's going to be any different?
Can you listen to the garbage coming out of Sonny Hostin's mouth? I can't believe there were no black female CEOs back in 1776. All right. We're talking about the history of the world, which has progressed an awful lot since then. By the way, thanks to a whole bunch of white men. Okay. But of course, the whole point is Pete Buttigieg is actually making a solid point. He's saying all of this DEI garbage being forced onto the American people, being forced onto companies and businesses. This is how you create the Trump voters, because people don't want to be forced to do anything in their lives. All right. And as much as Sonny Hostin wants to sit here and say that, oh, studies show that companies that are diverse do much better than companies that aren't. Well, you can find all kinds of studies like I did over here from Harvard Business School. All right. Why diversity programs fail. And what this whole article is about is talking about the research of when you force these DEI programs on people, they rebel. Right? They don't like them because they don't want the idea that, oh, I'm not the one actually in charge of hiring. I'm not the one responsible for actually making the decision on who's the best fit for the company. Instead, I'm checking this box, and then people revolt against it. And of course, it creates animosity amongst the employees themselves. All right. However, if you let these things happen naturally, if you give people the choice, then that type of diversity actually leads to good growth. Okay, so all of the DEI programs, as Pete Buttigieg says, it seems like just some type of Portlandia skit, right? Something that is so crazy that it has to be parody, when in fact, they're actually just beyond parody at this point, all right? When you do that, people revolt against it. But when you allow it to happen naturally, hey, all of a sudden, you're back to merit. All of a sudden, you're back to hiring people who are actually qualified for the position instead of being forced to hire X number of people to fill a certain position because we have to have this quota, okay? And that is the point that Sonny Hostin is missing. And this, of course, is why the DEI, the woke messaging failed, because you tried to force it on the American people. We know that we're not racist, sexist, bigot, homophobes, right? We know that we're all fair-minded people and we're all accepting people, okay? But of course, the other part of the losing message is going against the waste, right? Why are you going against something that is so popular for the American people?
The White House is arguing that all these cuts the Doge is making, all of this will eventually help with inflation. We're gonna see about that, obviously, and we'll stay on top of that. But we have confirmed some of the cuts the Doge team has been making, and they do include things besides what we were just discussing, like gender-affirming healthcare in Guatemala, teaching people in Kazakhstan to fight back against internet trolls, voluntary male circumcisions in Mozambique, creating work opportunities for young LGBTQI plus people in Serbia. Are these things that you think taxpayer money from the U.S. taxpayer money should be spent on? And how do you think taxpayers knew their money was going to these causes?
So happy to have a discussion on the funding of USAID and what some of these programs are going to. But what the administration cannot do is randomly freeze the funding to all these programs that Congress has already appropriated. That's why we have an entire appropriations process. And it's also simply wrong that they're making these cuts to somehow help Americans. They're making these cuts to give billions of dollars of tax breaks to billionaires. And how do we know that? Because Republicans just passed a budget out of committee last week that does exactly that. It gives trillions of dollars, actually, in tax breaks to the super wealthy.
But Republicans and many Americans, and I hear from them a lot, say, look, I know Democrats say that this is going to help with tax cuts to billionaires, but Democrats have been saying for years, going back to President Clinton, we're going to make the government more efficient. We're going to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. And in their view, they're looking at all of this and they're applauding it. They're saying, finally, someone is doing something about this. And they're moving fast. And sometimes you have to do that and mistakes will be made. But finally, they're getting rid of some of the waste. And wow, I can't believe this is what my taxpayer dollars are going to, including some of those programs I mentioned.
So here's Ted Lieu, one of the dumbest members of Congress. I mean, he's confronted with the simple fact that, hey, here's a bunch of wasteful spending that taxpayer dollars are going to. Do you support cutting these? What does he say? Oh, tax breaks for the billionaires. That's what Republicans are really after. Okay. And all of this stuff, it was actually earmarked. We approved sending money to Mozambique for circumcisions. Okay. That money has to go there, right? Rather than coming out and saying, hey, you know what? We found this stuff. We're against it. We're going to stop it in the future. Shame on whoever actually put this in the bill in the first place, right? Rather than saying that, he's going to come out and say, oh, the tax breaks for the wealthy, the tax breaks for the billionaires. Something, as is rightly pointed out there by the CNN anchor, that the Democrats have been harping on for years. Every single election cycle, they say the same thing. Pay the fair share. He's only helping the wealthy, okay? Even though they had complete control of the federal government for the last 2 years. So, of course, their hypocrisy is totally on display here. And honestly, as I've been saying, I hope they never learn because I want to win elections. So as usual, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe on this video, and say hi to your mom for me.